So when we launch Illustrator, we come up to the new document dialog box, and what we can do is we can go to like one of the default items, which is like print, and we can use one of the presets like letter. We can change the point size, like this is how they measure the document. So points, picas, inches. So we change that to inches. This is 8.5 by 11, which is the standard size sheet of paper. And I'll turn it sideways in the landscape orientation. This is the number of pages that we can have in our document. So it's almost like pieces of paper in the same document. That's artboards. And then bleed basically means if you were to go to a printer and you wanted the color to go off the edges of your document, you would include a bleed, which means it just extends just outside the 8.5 by 11 area, and then you put your color that go outside that, so when the printer cuts it down, the color is all the way to the edge. And so that's what a bleed means. I'll press create. Just to get familiar with the zones, just like you guys have been familiar with Adobe InDesign, on the right hand side we have our properties and our panels and things like that. The top is going to be our menu bar, and the left is going to be our tools. The tools that you are going to be really familiar with are the selection tool, the direct selection tool, this one here which is called the curvature tool, and then these shape tools. Anytime you see these little triangles, just like the other software, that means that other tools are associated with that one tool. So if I click and hold, I get the other tools. The only difference about this software and InDesign is that you can go over here to the right and you can tear that tool off so that you can kind of reuse these tools whenever you need them. So I'll take that, I'll take this, and I think that's pretty much it. And maybe the type tool, but so you need 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are the 5 tools that you'll really be looking at to use. Down here is your fill and your stroke. This swaps the color, the fill and the stroke, this little arrow. This is your color and your, like if you want to change this to gradient, it kind of takes you to a gradient, but you can turn it back to regular color. But mainly, you're going to be using over on your right, you're going to be using your properties panel to change the fill and the stroke. All right? Okay. Close that. To create a shape, same thing in InDesign. You click, you drag, you create a box. Or you click once, it brings up the dialog box, and you can put in a specific amount, like 5, tab 5. Okay? The black arrow tool moves things around, and it also allows you to scale. Right? You can change shapes. The white arrow tool, this is the white arrow tool, is the direct selection tool. This allows you to take individual points and modify their position. You can't do that with the black arrow tool. The black arrow tool only takes the whole shape and moves it around. Right? The white arrow tool allows you to take individual points and modify them. When you have the white arrow tool and you click in the center, they have these little target icons, and these anchor points, these are called anchor points. When they're blue or completely filled in, that means they're selected. If I click on one of those and only select that one, it's filled in, the other ones are white, that means that they're not selected. So that means I can move this point around without affecting everything else. But when I click in the center and they're all selected, it's going to move the whole thing around. All right? The targets that show up, this allows you to round the corners. Okay, so just to recap a little bit, black arrow tool moves things around. White arrow tool allows you to move points, individual points, and that's called the direct selection tool. The group selection tool, which is the white arrow with the plus, we haven't got into how to group objects yet, but if you were to group an object or objects, like let's say I wanted to move these two things around together, I could hold shift to select each one, go up to object, group, and now when I click, they move together, right, with the black arrow tool. If I want to move one of those around individually, I click on the arrow with the plus, and I can select one individual item out of the group, move it around, and now if I click off to deselect and go back to the black arrow tool, click once, they're still grouped, and I can still move them around. Now, what happens if I want to rearrange the order? Right? I want this to be behind that. I would use my group selection tool, select this one. I can either right click and go to arrange, or I go up here to my menu, go to object, arrange, send to back. Okay, so it changes the order. Black arrow tool moves things around. White arrow tool, individual points. Group selection tool moves individual objects within a group. Shape tools, click and drag to create. Click once on the screen to get the dialog box to type in specific numbers. If I had the star tool or the polygon tool and I wanted to make a triangle, you just change the number of points from 5 to 3. Now you have a triangle. Same thing with the polygon tool. Click once, 6 to 3, I have a triangle. So shape tools all pretty much work the same. When you click once, you can determine the numbers. If you're clicking to drag to keep things in proportion, like a perfect circle, I can hold shift and drag, and I'm going to create the perfect circle. Okay, so holding shift allows you to create a perfect circle or a perfect square. Star, if I hold shift, right now I have to get the number of points back up, right? So if I wanted to get those number of points back up, I have to click once, increase the points, and then when I hold shift, it creates that star that's going to be straight up and down. So creating shapes, creating a line, you can just click and drag and freeform that line, or you can hold shift and it'll give you a vertical line, horizontal line, or 45-degree angle line. So by holding shift, you get 45-degree angles, or vertical or horizontal. If not, when you freeform drag it, you can kind of put it in the direction that you want it to be. Now, the way Illustrator works, these are all shapes, right? And they're closed shapes. So the closed shape I can fill with a color. But if I do something that has lines like this and they're not connected, let me just grab this line tool, and I think I'm like, oh man, this is cool. I can take these lines and I can do this. Now these are individual lines. So I can't fill this with a color. If I try to fill this with a color, like yellow or green, nothing happens because Illustrator needs to have a closed shape to fill with the color. So I can take this and fill it with the color. I can take this and fill with a color. And all these other shapes that are closed, I can fill with color. But I cannot fill this with a color because it's individual lines. Okay, I created this with the line segment tool. So they have to be connected. Okay, it's a closed shape. Um, you can use the line segment tool as like accents and things like that. You can change the color and the stroke, but you can't fill with a color. Okay, everybody understand that? All right. So again, just to kind of recap a little bit, group selection tool allows you to select individual items in a group. Direct selection tool allows you to select individual points of a shape or a line. Shape tools, click and drag to create a shape. Hold shift, click and drag. You're going to create, it's going to keep it in proportion. And if you click once on the screen, it'll bring up the dialog box. Now, the tool here, which is called the curvature tool, what that allows you to do is, let me see, first of all, I'm going to select all and delete, right? So I'll go up to here to select all, and that selects everything on my canvas, and delete. Okay, I just press delete on the keyboard. So I'm going to use this line segment tool, and I'm also going to just create a box. Okay, so with this tool here called the curvature tool, what it does is it allows you to add points. Let me see, first I have to make sure it's selected. So it allows me to add a point, add a point, add a point, and then it allows me to click and drag that point. I can also continue to create. All right, and so by doing this, I'm able to close that shape and, you know, maybe, well, it looks like I'm creating some lips. All right, so now let's just say, I didn't plan on doing this, but let's just say this were, let's just say these were like some bad lips that I created, right? I'll make this filled with red, and this point is very curved. So what I want to do is I want to turn that into a corner point, which if I hold the Option key and I click on that point, it turns it into a corner instead of it being curved. So Option, click on the point, makes it sharp. If I Option click it again, it turns it back into a curve. Okay, Option click. So let's just say, for instance, now I wanted like a black line to kind of separate this. Let's say I'm just going to do a simple line like this. It's a line segment. It's black. But because I have that curvature tool, I can take that simple line and create this graphic. And then I get back to my selection tool, maybe increase the size of the stroke, maybe increase the size of the stroke there, you know, and it's just kind of some weird lips going on, right? And if if you kind of played with it a little bit more, you probably could. This is the direct selection tool, the white arrow tool. So now you have the ability to start to move points around, and you can kind of take this and maybe extend it out, play around with the handles, things like that. And so you can go in and fine tune some stuff. But for the most part, Illustrator works with shapes, and you don't necessarily have to draw really well to create things. This box down here, when I select this box, remember I can make all the corners round, but instead of doing all of the corners round, what if I just wanted this one to be round and maybe this one over here to be round? You know, so now maybe I have the idea that I want to make this into a leaf, right? So now I have this kind of leaf shape, and I have my line segment, and I have my curvature tool. And once I get this stroke, now this is the cool part. If I deselect and I look at this line, and we talked about line quality in one of our first couple of lessons. Right now, the line quality is very straight. The end of this line, basically, I'm going to increase the size just so you can see it a little bit better. But the end of it is like very flat. I can change what's called the line profile by clicking on the word stroke. And profile shows up here, and right now it's uniform. But like maybe if I did something like this, where it says width profile, where it starts off skinny, gets thick, and then goes skinny, right? So now I can change how that works. Or maybe with this line profile, I can do something like that where it has a little variation in it, or maybe something like this or whatever. And so now this looks a lot more interesting than just a regular line, right? And so now when I put this down, this is pretty interesting. I can fill this with like a light green. Looks pretty good, right? So we can create simple graphics just by using the basic tools. So now how do we create this little watermelon? Or I'll just do, because you guys did the burger joint, we'll do a hamburger. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do a hamburger, right? So I'm going to take a circle, get my curvature tool, and I'm going to create a simple bun. All right, and this is going to be something like that. Maybe I'll create, this would be my burger, and then let's say I want to use this again because I already created it. There's a tool here called the reflect tool, and it's behind the rotation tool. So reflect, double click on it. It shows, I click on preview, and this is vertical, but if I do horizontal, it reflects it. And instead of pressing OK, I'll press copy. And then get my move tool, bring it down, scale that down. This one, I remember that I can curve things. Remember how I can take these points and add curvature? I can use this selection to kind of move down, and then maybe I want to represent some cheese. So I have my line segment, increase the stroke amount, get my curvature tool to zoom in. This is some, maybe you guys can write this down, and I think I gave this to you for InDesign too, but Command minus zooms out, Command plus zooms in, and Command 0 brings you back full screen. Command minus, Command plus, Command 0. So with my curvature tool, I can click, start adding points. Melt that cheese. Probably looking more like lettuce. But anyway, I'll do something like that. Oops. And now, if I wanted to add some, some color or whatever, or maybe this becomes a little bit thicker. And when I click on the word stroke, I have these, caps that I can use, which is a rounded cap. But if I liked it square, I can keep it square. That's fine. And the burger, right now I'll just do this black and white. So this is my default colors. So I'll click on default color and increase the stroke of the back here. 13. Let me get the stroke value for these. Maybe put them at 8. That's too thick. I'll do 7. And then if you wanted to modify, the look, you can just kind of go back in and start to modify the look and the feel. Okay. And maybe there's a circle around it. So if I hold shift, it creates my perfect circle. Arrange, right click, arrange, send to back. Put that in my circle. Maybe my color is, we'll go with red. And this one has a white fill, so I want to take that to none. And this is cheese, so I'm going to make this, take that to none. Make this yellow. Make this kind of a brown. Select that. Make this like a brown color. It's my meat. And so maybe this isn't filled with red. I don't like it, filled with red. So maybe it's filled with like a light gray, which is probably not good because it doesn't show up. So maybe it's a dark gray, and the outside stroke is red. Now I'll probably have to really come up with my color palette. I don't know what that color would be. Pink. You guys can kind of really just kind of figure out what you want to do with that, but maybe it's green, and then you over exaggerate what that looks like. You can also change the alignment of the stroke, so I can align it to the inside, to the outside, and so maybe I want to align this to the outside and bring the size of the circle down. And then the last thing, I'm going to select all. So I select all, hold shift, scale this down. And the last thing is like, what do I want to do with this? Like, do I want to add the term burger joint? So I get my type tool, click once on the screen. Oops. Let me zoom in. Click once. Burger joint. The size is here. The fonts are here. Your font, just like what we did for homework, your font is basically going to tell the type of personality that your establishment is. All right. So what kind of font do you choose, for the personality of your establishment? All right. So if I select something, I can also click right there and use my up and down arrow tool to cycle through some of the fonts. So I'm using my arrow tool because I highlighted the font name, and I'm trying to figure out what I like and what I don't like, right? So I'm going to choose something that kind of gives the personality that I want this thing to have. And it's really, for me, the background of this burger joint place is a little bit more laid back. It's not really like a it's something that you go down to the corner and you get, and it's not really like one of those things that you have to dress up to go to or anything like that, right? So I just want it to be really fun, and maybe I'll do something like this where it says burger joint, is kind of cursive, and then somehow I want to make this like kind of warp to it. Maybe it's even connected here, or maybe it like kind of does something like that. But I want it to be, or maybe it's like even it's split up. So I'll select this part, copy that, and then paste. So edit, copy, edit, paste, and then I can have them individual and increase the font size, like maybe let's say 150. And I really don't like this green behind it, so I'm going to take this away. And I can also do stuff like this. And maybe I'm just playing around. I'm just playing around, just seeing what works, what doesn't work. Burger joint, burger joint. So a lot of times it's trying to figure out like what works, what doesn't work. Do they work together? Do they not work together? And I don't like how joint is looking with that. Maybe the burger needs to be angled. And maybe this needs to be a different font. I don't like that. So none of these look good to me. So maybe I need to say spot, the burger spot. And so I'll say, this is my, take this, copy, paste, double click, the burger spot. And then now this dot makes a little bit more sense, and I can take down this right here. I can start to switch color. So maybe this is red inside, and then the stroke becomes like a light gray. And if I put this behind the text, I change the text to white. Maybe set this to bold, and then maybe this becomes my thing. Straighten it up. So I'm looking for balance. I'm looking for, what I think works, and maybe this is my brand, the burger spot, right? Play with it and see what works, see what doesn't work. What do you guys think? Good? Yeah? Okay. All right. Perfect. So this is the burger spot. And again, just to recap, we used the type tool. We clicked once on the screen to create a type block. Use our keyboard to type stuff in. When we do type it in, we can change the font, the style of the font, the size of the font, the alignment, all in the properties here. This was a regular circle, ellipse shape. Increase the stroke size, change the fill color. The corners allow you to stretch it bigger or smaller. If I hold shift, I'm able to keep it constrained into a perfect circle or not. This was created just using the circle shape, the square rectangle shape, and rounding the corners. And this was just a simple line that I used this curvature tool to add points and make it a little wavy, and I increase or decrease the stroke. Kind of looks like a burger to me. Any questions?
When we're done, how do we save it?
How do you save it? Good question. She's a pro at this school stuff. All right, so how do we save it? What we're going to do is we are going to basically go to File, Save. Okay. Now there's two ways you're going to save this. One, if you are going to work or continue to work on it, you want to save it as an Illustrator format, .ai. That's if you're going to keep working on it in Illustrator. If you're going to save it to turn it in, you're going to save this, you're going to change this format to PDF. Okay? Now, when the homework assignment that I'm going to give you, you're going to have multiple artboards. So, like on this artboard, this will be like your burger artboard, right? And then maybe on another artboard you'll have something else. But how do we create artboards? That's the question. So right now I have one artboard, and over here, like when I have nothing selected, this is artboard 1. If I have more than one artboard, you'll see artboard 2, artboard 3, whatever. You can click on edit artboards, and when you click on edit artboards, you can change the name of the artboard. This is my burger logo. So that would be the name of, you can see the name show up here. And then you can also create another artboard, and then you can change the name of that. You can even change the size of the artboard. Okay? You can change the orientation. So when you go to save and you're going to continue to work, you can save it as AI to reopen it in the Illustrator to continue to work, or you go to File, Save, and when you're ready to turn it in, you're going to save this as a PDF. And I'm going to show you what happens when, let me put like a circle or something here. Okay, so I have this, I have this. File, Save, PDF, Test, or Practice. I'm going to save this to my desktop, and it says use artboards all. You can also save a PDF of just one artboard, but right now we're using all. So I save this. It pops up here. What do I want to do? You don't have to change anything. The only thing that I would suggest changing is making sure that they're all checked, because I like to view it after I save it. So when I click View PDF after saving, Save PDF, then Acrobat opens up. So my artboards are there, and I can switch between pages. I can also change the settings. Now, what the good thing about Illustrator is that no matter how much you zoom in, the quality of the edges remain the same. And that's the cool thing about creating in Illustrator. This was the result while you guys are working. Virgo logo. To recap on what we did with this was a circle, text tool, text. I duplicated the different text. One has white fill and white stroke. The other one is just black. These are just modified circular shapes. This was the brush tool, just kind of painted like a shape here. Modified circle, modified line, modified square, modified circle, and brush tool. This is basically a line that's been duplicated, and then the color, like I took the opacity down of each one, and so you can see the line kind of fade away. Same color I used for the outside circle I used here, and I filled that color with red. So nothing really complex in terms of like what tools I used. It's about how you use the tools and how you arrange the items on your page. This was rotated, and that's about it. Okay, so for you, you're going to take this concepts that you've learned in Illustrator, and over the course of next week, you're going to look inside the working with type area. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to review all of the different lecture notes and the handouts that I gave you, because on the following week, which is the following Monday or Wednesday, I can't remember, but you're going to have a quiz on the information from these handouts, like about the font families, the typographic terms, type classifications, personality, that type of thing. So study this information, and then you'll be asked about those details on the week when we return. Down here, this was the font personalities assignment that you were supposed to turn in today, and if there's any questions or anything like that, we'll go over that today. And so these are the two assignments that are going to be due at the end of the week, next week. So the first one is going to be playing with type, right? And so this is some layout design. So you're going to have to do 2 full color printouts. Well, I say printouts, but they're going to be digital. I'll change that to be the PDF documents. It says 2 layout variations of any subject of your choice. Now focus on a type-driven image, and you're going to start to explore the tools within Adobe Illustrator. So these are some layout samples. When I zoom in, these are some layout samples that you will try to replicate. All right, so you can choose any 2 of these samples to try to replicate the design, and you're going to use Adobe Illustrator. Actually, you can use Illustrator or InDesign to create this. I don't care. I just want you to try to replicate these designs. This has drop caps. It has the big titles. It's formatting your text. There's an image or a picture. There's a caption. So basically, you can try to choose any of these 2 layouts and replicate those layouts using InDesign or Illustrator. Okay? And I want you to use real text, some sort of real image, and you don't have to make up the text, but you can copy and paste or whatever you want to do. So I want you to use real text, real headlines, real image. So I want your layout to make sense, but you're going to use this as a basic, like a basis or a foundation. Okay, so you're going to do 2 of those, and they're going to have 0.5 inch margin all the way around. Some of them will have a little bit more, but right here, like you can see the 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 all the way around. This one probably has like an inch margin. but you're going to use your margins, and the size of those documents will be 8 by 10. Okay. Any questions on that? So that's the first thing that you're going to try to do. You do that, and then once you do that, you're going to save those as PDF and you turn those in here. The second thing you're going to do is going to be a little bit more extensive. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Each one should probably take you about, I would say, an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And so this is basically like a workout for the next 4 days of next week, right? So the first one is going to be an invitation layout, one formal design and one playful design. So you're going to make up an invitation for something that's supposed to be formal and something that's going to be playful or fun. You can use Adobe InDesign. I would recommend maybe using InDesign, but you can use Illustrator to create some graphics for it if you want. You can also use stock graphics if you want. Like if you just want to download some icons and things like that so you don't have to recreate a lot of those things, you can use those elements and rearrange your text and color and all that kind of stuff, but you're going to create a design that creates the theme of a formal design and a playful design. So that's going to be an invitation. The second document is going to be a coupon for fast food. Now you guys just created, or you're creating, in the process of creating your logo for the burger joint. So you're going to use that burger logo that you create, and you're going to create 2 coupon ads for that burger joint logo that you create, right? And this can be done in InDesign or Illustrator. So when you save out your burger, or if you copy and paste from Illustrator into InDesign, you can still kind of lay out your text in InDesign, or you can do it in Illustrator as well. Today, I'm going to show you how to make like a dotted line for the coupon so that you can use the dotted line as your coupon. Okay. Business card. So you're going to make believe that you work for the company of your dreams, whatever that company is. Try to find their logo, and you're going to be basically an employee of that company, and you're going to create a business card for yourself. Okay, so you're going to find the logo of the company, import it, create the layout and look of the business card that you would be using if you worked for that company. Okay. The last thing is layout design practice, right? So an 8.5 by 11 document, you're going to produce an advertisement for a product. So you're going to make believe that you need to sell something that you own, and you're going to design a print size flyer and a social media post for that product. Maybe it's your book bag, maybe it's the sneakers, maybe it's headphones, maybe it's whatever. So you're going to try to get that item, make an advertisement for it, design it, and produce the sizes of a print, flyer, and a social media post. Okay? And so I definitely want to know how you, or what's the size that you're using for your social media post. So you're going to have to do a little bit of research to find out what's the size of a social media post and how to get that exact size. Okay? So these are the things that's going to keep you busy next week, right? This is all doable. And I would say, if I'm looking at time frame, I would say 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day. I would say it'll take you, if you spent a whole day on each one, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? So you have 5 days to complete 5 things. And if you do that, just take it day by day, you can do it with ease. You may even be able to do 2 in a day. Okay? But these are the different things that you're going to be doing. Any questions so far on that? Okay. So now, what I want to show you in InDesign and Illustrator is how to create a dashed line. And we'll talk about, so I want you to get something to write with, because we're going to talk about the size, like for a business card, what's the sizes for like maybe a coupon, what are the sizes maybe for invitation, Okay, so for invitation, I want you to make the size 9 by 7 or 7 by 9, whatever it is, and um, that can be horizontal or vertical, and you can do both if you want. But that's going to be 7 by 9 or 9 by 7. The coupon ads, let's just make those. You can either do 4 by 4, which is a square, or you can do horizontal ones that would be, I would say, 3.5 by 6. So um, either vertical or horizontal. So 3.5 inches by 6 inches. The business card, the standard format for business card is 2 by 3.5. So it's 2 inches high by 3.5 wide, or 2 inches wide by 3.5 high. Excuse me?
You said for the business card, it can be either 2 by 3.5.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the layout design. This is the how to sell your ad or whatever. You can make that just a straight 8.5 by 11 letter size document. And then the social media post, I want you to find the size on the internet. I want you to do some research on, because there's different social medias, like there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's all those different types. So find the size. What's the platform you're gonna to post on, and what's the size that you're gonna do for that. Okay. So the first thing I'm gonna show you is how to make the dotted or dashed line for a coupon. So when let's say I use this, I'm duplicating this by copy and paste. If you want to resize, like one of the things that you're going to run into if you want to resize your artwork in Illustrator, on the left-hand side, you'll find the scale tool. In the scale tool, you can press S on your keyboard to get the scale tool. And when I double-click on the scale tool, what it asks me is, do I want to scale corners and do I want to scale stroke and effects? If you don't check that, what's going to happen is when you scale it down, the size of the stroke will stay the same, and your information will get smaller, and so it'll just look different because the stroke will not get bigger or smaller. So when you use the scale corners and strokes and effects, when I scale it down, the size of the stroke scales with it. Okay, so let's just say I'm going to do something like this, which is 35%. I push OK, and now I want to make a coupon shape. I'm going to take no fill, and I'm going to do a black stroke and increase this size to, let's say, 8. And inside stroke, when I click on the name, I can click on dash line, and it creates this dash line. If I want the dashes to be smaller, or longer, like right now it's at 12 point. So if I want to increase that size, I can put, let's say, 20. And it makes the dashes longer. Okay? If I did 30, it makes the dashes longer. Oops. So this is, my dotted line. If I want the square to be rounded, I can round it, and now I have a coupon that's rounded. Okay, so that is the that's how you create the dash in Illustrator. It's the same type of thing in InDesign. It's just mainly I have to open it up. But it's the same type of thing in InDesign. We'll wait till that opens up. But also in here, you want to take your type tool, click once. Let me see, buy one. Let me get cap locks. Buy one, get one free. And I'm going to change the size so that it fits. Change the alignment. And then, so what is it? What are the things that you need, or some of the things that you may think is missing from something like this? All right, it says buy one, get one free. What are they buying? All right, buy a burger, buy a shake, buy a meal, buy a deal. What is it that they're getting free? So maybe, you know, when you're thinking about typography and things like that, so maybe what you're looking at is buy one. Oh, this is so annoying. Maybe what you're looking at is buy one, get one, and then free is bigger. You're focusing on the term free. Okay. Spacing is important. So the space between the text. We come over here. This is our leading. So I can decrease the spacing. It's freezing up because I think because of my InDesign opening it up. So you can do stuff like this where it's buy one, get one free. And then you can put like what the product is. You can change the background color. Right? If it covers up everything, I right click, arrange, send to back. And then you have to worry about what it looks like if you have a background color, because maybe it doesn't look good with the white color that you have. So maybe I need to take down the opacity. All right, but if I take down the opacity, then I'm taking the opacity of the lines here. So maybe it doesn't work. So maybe that color is not good to have like that. But yeah, so that's the whole concept. The whole concept is trying to get your, trying to design your text, trying to design your coupon, and getting the right information and fitting it the right way. So you're gonna have to do some research as well to find out what some of these coupons look like and what goes on these coupons, right? So that is Illustrator. This is InDesign. So I'm just going to create a new document for InDesign. Create a box. And when I create the stroke amount, once I create the stroke amount, right next to the stroke point size, there is a box that gives me all different types of border control. And so I have dashed lines. I have the regular dashed right here. I can go to dotted lines. I can do some different types of dashes here. And so as you resize, that updates, and the size as well. Okay, so InDesign is a little bit easier in terms of how you put text and things like that. So one of the things that you could do is you could say, okay, well, I'm going to do my coupon and set up in InDesign, and maybe go back to Illustrator, copy my logo. So I'll select it, edit, copy, and maybe go back over to InDesign and paste. All right, scale it down, and now everything kind of moves together. And from here, you can start designing your coupon. All right, you can get your text box. Select it all, increase the size, do the alignment. One of the things that you want to think about is, when does this coupon expire? You know, are there any other information? Is there any other information that you need to get off of these things? But InDesign is definitely a little bit better when it comes to place and type. So you can take your graphics and bring it into InDesign with no problem. Okay. This particular hamburger doesn't look the greatest because it didn't copy over, well. But what happens is, let's say you want to use this as a graphic, like to place. So let's say I'm going to save out this particular graphic as an image so that I can place it in InDesign. So I'm going to go File, Save As. Make this an Illustrator file. I'm going to use one artboard. Actually, I'll just do it like this. Practice, class practice. Desktop, save it. Okay. Now when I go to Adobe InDesign, I'm going to delete this out. I'll create an image box. File, place, look on my desktop, look for class practice, there it is. I'm going to click on show import options, open. Now it tells me, because I have 2 pages, it's asking me, do I want to import that? Do I want to import this? I just want to import this. So I'm going to take one page, just this page, and I want to import that. Okay. Now we talked about placing it and fitting it, and this is what we can use to fit our information. Fitting. If I put my mouse in the center, I can click and hold, or click and activate the picture itself, and then I can move it up. And basically it's in the center of this text box or the image box, and I have the ability to kind of move this around and put it where I want. Okay, so that's my graphic that I created in Illustrator, and placed into InDesign. And that's an image that I'm able to use. And that's what InDesign is used for. InDesign is used for placement of graphics and text. And it works very easy. Now you can just kind of move things around, and it's a really easy way to go in between both platforms. Okay? Any questions? Okay, so let's review just if there's anything in here that you may not know how to do, right? So with the invitation layout, I gave you the size of the layout. And so when you're creating the document, whether you're creating in InDesign or Illustrator, you're going to put in the size of the invitation layout. On InDesign, you'll have 2 pages. On Illustrator, you'll have 2 artboards, right? And for coupons, the same thing. You'll either have 2 pages or you'll have 2 artboards that give you these 2 coupons. The business card, I want you to do front and back of the business card. So that's going to give you, like if you have the front where it's only the logo and the website or whatever, and then the other one has more detail, however you want to do that. But I want you to do the business card. Now, with this business card, please take note that I want you to look up a reference of some business card that you like. And I want you to show evidence of you looking at a business card and using that as a reference, right? So that allows you to have a starting point of designing a business card, where things are placed, how they're placed, what colors they use, all those types of things. The layout design practice, same thing. If you're using InDesign, you're going to use, you're going to set up your document, which is 11 by 7, 8.5 by 11. And then the social media post size that you'll find online, you'll set that up in the document settings. In Illustrator, these would be different artboards. And so you'll set them up in that way. Now, in InDesign, you have an image box and you can import images. Now, I haven't really gone over how to import an image into Illustrator. If I want to import an image into Illustrator, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Place. There it is. Open. Click and drag. And that's our image.